our nation in the United States Army for 8 years and continues his service as a dedicated advocate for Michigan's 10th District. This is his second time testifying before the Ways and Means Committee. Welcome back, my friend.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your time. I'll just cut right to the chase. Let's not get it twisted. Every single Democrat is going to vote against this tax package. And I fear that our Republican colleagues are being played for their fools, giving carte blanche to blue state governors to continue to enact laws and regulations that will hurt their people and increase with perverse incentives to do the right things is not necessarily what we should be doing. There are Republicans, our very good friends and colleagues, Esposito, Molinaro, Garcia, and Steele, who are at home right now, who made the same SALT argument. And for the remaining 5 of our very dear colleagues who are pushing very hard for the SALT cap raising, for the increase in cost of $225 billion over the next decade, that's $45 billion per seat. How much are we willing to pay for a seat? We need to ask ourselves this question: are we willing to pay for certain things at the expense of the rest of America? I think that we have a number of things that would benefit all Americans, regardless of where we live, and that is where I would like to focus today, Mr. Chairman. It's great to be back here in the 119th Congress, and I believe that we have to make sure that we ensure that many avenues of prosperity. The best avenue of prosperity is through education. I particularly want to highlight this path of prosperity through the Educational Choice for Children Act, legislation intended to expand education freedom and opportunity for students, and I appreciate our colleague from Nebraska, Mr. Adrian Smith, for leading on these efforts. And I look forward to working with all my colleagues in these months ahead to get this bill for consideration on the House floor. We must continue to prioritize reforms to education that expand choice, and the best way to do that is to put parents back in the driver's seat. I believe firmly that when you give parents choice, you give students a chance. In addition, I believe the child tax credit, a responsible approach to addressing the provisions in the Inflation Reduction Act, must also be a part of this important debate on how we restore economic prosperity here in America. Again, a much better use of money for all Americans than just a few on the coast. My bill from the 118th Congress, Reignite Hope Act, would increase the child tax credit from $4,500 for each child from 0 to 5 and $3,500 for each child 6 to 17. After 4 years of reckless federal spending and terrible economic policies out of the Biden-Harris administration, parents in my district and districts all over the country are pleading for some relief. They've paid upwards of $6 for gas, $10 for a dozen eggs, and $7 for milk. Now more than ever, parents across the country deserve relief, proven relief. The child tax credit works. Lastly, everyone in this room knows there are a multitude of concerns about IRA. I share those concerns. The IRA, which did exactly the opposite of its name, was a radical attempt to institute the left-wing wish list of the Green New Deal agenda. EV mandates, which have already cost thousands of good-paying jobs in Michigan, removed consumer choice from the free market and made us reliant on China, enabled child slave labor in the Congo, and widely prevalent EV supply chain risks. I'm thrilled that the House, along with President Trump, have made the elimination of job-killing EV mandates a priority. As I led the EV CRA last Congress, we're going to redouble those efforts. And I would like to echo the comments of my great friend and colleague, Rep. Houchin, when she mentioned we have to go at this with a scalpel and not a chainsaw. I ask that we proceed with caution when looking to address the provisions of the IRA that have incentivized onshoring the future of automotive jobs, manufacturing, and increasing our capacity. I do believe that history will show the United States government does have a role in increasing capacity and our ability to bring economic prosperity to our people and to defend ourselves through our manufacturing prowess. While the bulk of the IRA is damaging policy, we must not neglect the sector-wide energy tax provisions that manufacturers and job creators rely on in my district and around the country. Additionally, it's critical that we continue to manufacture and assemble semiconductor chips here in America. We cannot rely on our foreign adversaries to produce and manufacture our means of self-defense and survival. We can and we must repatriate American jobs, reinvigorate manufacturing golden age in this country while mitigating the national security risk. If we continue to assemble semiconductor chips here in America, we will be in a much better position. I encourage this committee to continue to consider addressing provisions from past legislation regarding our chip supply chain. We have to walk and chew gum at the same time, Mr. Chairman, and I'm confident with your leadership we will. I appreciate the time here to speak today, and I want to say a particular thank you for working with your staff. We are working on a way that we can help, in a conservative manner, students with their loan debt while also addressing our mandatory spending and the liability we have in the long term. And with that, Mr. Chairman, thank you for your time. I yield.
Thank you, Mr. James. I now recognize Representative Keith Self.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Apparently, Democrat gaslighting produces zero emissions. But what does their radical agenda mean for constituents in my districts and your districts who pay more at the pump, who pay more for groceries? Folks in Southeast Michigan have experienced their jobs being extinct, being shipped to other states, being shipped to other countries because Green New Deal woke policies do not work in the real world. Let's look at this from a 30,000-foot view. Over the past 4 years, every American has footed a higher gas bill, higher energy costs, and rising prices to keep their cars running and their homes heated. Under the Biden-Harris administration, they totally bent over to the radical left. We stopped producing cleaner, affordable energy in America to fit a narrative that only serves coastal elites and the rich in New York and California. What did this lead to? Our strategic petroleum reserves hit lows we haven't seen since I was a baby. That meant U.S. relying on energy that was unclean, energy that I would note are from dictators and despots in Moscow and Beijing and Tehran. Here's the inconvenient truth for my friends on the left. Energy produced and developed here in America is cleaner, it's safer, and it doesn't threaten our national security. In fact, it bolsters it. And what's worse, relying on our adversaries for energy means American jobs go down, not up. My constituents in the Detroit area are all too familiar with this, seeing the reckless policy effects of the EV mandates. Another failed policy billable to the Biden administration is importing sour crude, which has funded our adversaries. And we talk about infrastructure investments on the left side. Well, how about shutting down the Keystone Pipeline, which got rid of 11,000 union jobs? Now, the Democrats' Green New Deal agenda is the grim reaper for American jobs and actually clean energy. Being able to actually move forward into a future where we can all have cheaper, safer, cleaner energy is our goal. All of the above is the approach. Line 5 pipeline is something that is a critical artery of energy for transporting crude and natural gas from Western Canada, which goes through Michigan, through the Great Lakes. And Line 5 is not just an economic driver for Michigan, but also provides energy to the east side of Canada. Unfortunately, radical environmentalists and ambitious politicians in both Lansing and Ottawa have become obstacles to common sense. They're banding together to shut down Line 5 in violation of a treaty that we have with our Canadian neighbors. Ms. Eversole, in your expert opinion, do you believe that restrictions like those, restrictions on Line 5 and having an all-of-the-above energy approach, continuing to trade with our Canadian allies, makes us weaker or stronger?
Indeed, these restrictions make us weaker.
Thank you. 2 weeks ago, Michigan state regulators approved $217 million rake hike on the DTE Energy, a power provider in Southeast Michigan. According to MPSC, the state regulator, DTE must charge consumers more to upgrade old power lines and continue maintenance to improve reliability. Now, we know that Michigan is now ranked 38 out of 50 for having the highest energy costs. Mr. McCown, in your expert opinion, is this a recipe for success, increasing costs and price without also having permitting reform and allowing an all-of-the-above approach to include natural gas to smooth our way away from coal and smooth our way toward nuclear? Or do increased regulations increase costs on consumers?
Mr. James, you're spot on. Increased regulations, increased cost, and far too often utilities are more than happy just to pass that along to the consumer instead of investing some of their profits back as well.
Thank you. Last year, I spoke on the House floor about how Biden's war on LNG was going to harm Michigan specifically. We have 1.1 trillion cubic feet in underground storage, which is one-eighth of the entire nation's natural gas storage capacity. Given DTE and consumers' baseload requirements that are increasing over the years versus the regulations in Michigan, we've been dealing with heavy-handed restrictions on building additional natural gas facilities and the supporting infrastructure requirements that we need to convey that safely with less power outages across the state. With a Republican House, Republican Senate, and White House, what can this Congress do to scale up natural gas as a reliable source? Again, Mr. McCown.
Well, there are several things we can do. Number one is we can stop the war on fossil fuels. We can have revised permitting. We can invoke public-private partnerships, loan guarantees. Some of the very same things that have been done for the renewable industry could be done to expand our natural gas or other fossil fuel industry too. It should be a level playing field for everybody.
We all want clean air. We all want clean water. We all want to reduce pollution. But we also don't want to send our countrymen to the poorhouse trying to pay for sunshine and rainbows that before our infrastructure is ready for it. The former president's LNG war is top. I'm running out of time here, so I'll just say we need to have something that's environmentally, economically friendly, and I plan to work on an all-of-the-above energy approach with my colleagues on the left and right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would be remiss if I didn't recognize you for your leadership and also bestowing on me the very high honor of leading supply chain and manufacturing policy for the subcommittee in the 119th Congress. So I look forward to working to make this committee proud and make America strong and great again. I'd also like to give Chairman Cruz a shout. I was pleased to hear the Senate Commerce Committee approve the Promoting Resilient Supply Chains Act, and I look forward to leading this bill in the House. I recognize the grand opportunity that we have in front of us to pass real, substantive policy to benefit the American people as it pertains to AI and manufacturing. If we don't lead in AI, the Chinese Communist Party will have all the brain power because they've stolen our IP, and they will have all the manpower because they're using slave labor to end Western civilization without firing a shot. It's simply not enough to close our eyes and hope for the best. We're in global competition with communist regimes that are hell-bent on building their economy on the backs of ours. AI and manufacturing here means not relying on goods made with slave labor on brain power stolen from Americans. It means predictive modeling to reduce costs and risk in supply chains. It means minimizing supply chain disruptions before they occur. It means making people more productive, allowing them to upskill and businesses to upscale into the future. This Congress, I'm also going to be launching bicameral and bipartisan reindustrialized caucus. This new caucus will serve as natural convening body for Congress to engage with the broader ecosystems of sectors vital to national security, economic resilience, and global competitiveness, taking feedback from industry leaders and experts such as yourself. We will increase manufacturing in a smart way. We will industrialize, and we recognize that folks are not afraid of the future, but we demand to be a part of it. So in that vein, I'm very concerned about our supply bases and the ability to keep up. 47% of manufacturers view data fragmentation as a major obstacle to effectively implementing AI, while small and mid-sized manufacturers, which make up 98.6% of U.S. manufacturing firms, often lack the capital to invest in AI. Can you speak, Ms. Humpton, on some of the suppliers who you rely on, the important nature for them to help you accomplish your mission, and also what the R&D tax credit would do for you and your suppliers' survival?
Thank you, Congressman James, for the question. Yes. And I want to share with everyone that Siemens USA has been localizing its supply chain for quite some time. You may know us as the manufacturers of America's high-speed rail when Brightline West proceeds. What we have built is a very robust supply chain that activates across 40 states whenever we build a train, as an example. But we also believe that there's a trend going on here that we want to share with everyone: glocalization. Mm-hmm. The idea that we can take advantage of global innovation, but actually build and perform locally, closer to the point of demand. And this is going to be a key concept for strengthening us here in the United States. The idea of incentivizing research and development is key because it is here that we're able to bring these concepts together. Now,
so the R&D tax credits are vital.
Excuse me?
The R&D tax credits are vital.
We are looking forward to having tax credits that actually make the U.S. a net exporter to the rest of the world in innovation.
Perfect. I'd like to piggyback on another one. You operate the largest digital twin in the world for the Navy. Can you tell me a little bit more about that and how AI will help address the bottlenecks in the defense industrial base in about 30 seconds, please?
In 30 seconds, what I
Yes.
can tell you, the world's largest digital twin is the digital twin of the Navy's shipyards. How do we get a bigger Navy? We do it by making sure that ships spend less time in repair, maintenance, and overhaul. How do we do that? We have to redesign the process in the shipyards. The digital twin that Siemens has been supporting the Navy with, at first look, there were notions about what do we need to do to fix the problem. By using a digital twin, the team was able to discover that what they thought were the bottlenecks were not. We would have spent billions of dollars solving a problem that didn't solve the bottleneck problem.
Perfect.
So
Sounds like a
digital
great
twin does it.
technology to bring to Michigan to help us build ships. Mr. Oxman,
Thank you.
we hear the demand for more computing power and data center processing to service AI is going to continue to increase. Can you give us a heads up on permitting reform, all of the above energy production, and maybe cite a couple of the unworkable environmental regulations that might hinder the energy required for this AI revolution?
Thanks, Congressman James. We definitely need an all-of-the-above energy solution for data centers. Data centers power the AI revolution that's taking place in the U.S., and you're absolutely right to highlight hindrances to the rollout of energy to supply those data centers. And all of the above energy solution will support the construction of data centers and make sure that there's not too much of a burden on the existing grid. The biggest obstacle by far is the one you highlighted, the local, the state, the county permitting requirements that hold up the deployment of energy. And we're looking forward to working with you on making sure that those challenges can be addressed so that we can move forward the energy solutions that data centers need.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I don't have a Lincoln story as well, but my youngest son turned 6 today. So I'm going to go FaceTime with him.
Happy birthday.
Thank you so much for your leadership. I yield.
Great, thank you. All right, now we'll recognize Representative Dingell for her 5 minutes. Okay, next we have Mr. James, my good friend from the state of Michigan. You're recognized for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is not a partisan issue. This is something that we should be able to work together and get done. I have 3 young boys. John's 11, Hudson is 10 in 2 days, and Christian is 6. And my 6-year-old, when wanting to watch cartoons, saw something nice up on TV, a cartoon, innocent, and he was able, through the App Store, on our television, to buy Max, HBO, Cinemax, Showtime. And he was able to gain access through that just in a portal. It's vital to make sure that we hold our virtual stores to the same standards that we hold our physical stores when it comes to material that is adult or addictive. And that is why I'm leading on this App Store bill that makes sure that we continue behind states that are taking the first step by making sure that we have a National Accountability Act that harmonizes the effectiveness of giving parents the tools to take care of their children. The lack of guardrails in the digital app stores defies logic and puts children at risk. There is simply no good reason why app stores should be allowed to circumvent the same lawful ID checks that brick and mortar stores abide to protect children from accessing age-restricted items such as, again, alcohol and tobacco. In other words, we don't rely on Marlboro or Budweiser to ensure kids aren't purchasing their products. We look at CVS, we look at 7-Eleven, we look at the supermarkets to age gate. The app ecosystem should be no different than what is currently established in the United States of America. These app stores are out of touch, and they need to come to reality. This is not a partisan issue, as I said before. This is common sense policy across party lines. It is also what parents want. It's what parents are demanding. Parents like us. We've seen similar legislation gaining steam and picking up momentum around the country. Other states, Alabama, Kentucky, New Mexico, Alaska, and other states. This issue is far too important not to get this bill signed into law in this Congress. It's critical that we get this done, we get it right. My first question is for Ms. Hawkins. Clearly, the status quo is not working. And the current policy framework around these digital app stores is failing to protect our children. What loopholes does this bill rectify in our current law? And can you elaborate on why this bill, in your opinion, is built to withstand a legal challenge given the focus on contracts, terms of service?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Congressman James. Right now, our children are signing contracts, complex terms of service agreements with apps individually every time they download it. These contracts allow access to their contact list, to their camera, to their photos, to their exact location. And parents often have no idea at all. There's no other place in our American law where kids are allowed to sign contracts and broker into these really intense agreements. So that's one loophole. Another, though, is the age ratings. Parents think that they have given permission to their kids to get access to apps that are appropriate for their age. And the entire parental control system on both iOS and Google devices is based on these ages. That Google and Apple have said, yes, these are right. But we're finding there's the nonpartisan organization's HEAT initiative and Parents Together. They just released a report where 200 apps had harmful content. Our organization has found hundreds going back every year for 5 years that are rated for 4-year-olds, 9-year-olds, 12-year-olds. And it has sexually explicit content and allows strangers to communicate directly. It gives access to location. The list goes on. Unless there's accurate age ratings, we as parents can't make the decisions about whether this is appropriate content or material for our kids. And the entire system for safety doesn't even work.
Thank you, Madam. Ms. Slaughter, when were you sworn in?
I was originally sworn in on May 2nd, 2018.
May 2nd, 2018, and you were chairman of the FTC for a small period of time, were you not?
I was the acting chair from January to June of 2021.
Acting chair of June 2021. I'd ask my colleagues, but I'm running low on time. Do you recall who was in the majority in Congress during that time period?
I believe the Democrats were,
Democrats were majority in Congress. Do you remember who the president was at that time?
it was Joe Biden.
It was Joe Biden. Joe Biden's approval rate was 57%, yet since 2018 and 2022, 33 kids younger than 13 have died as a result of challenges on TikTok. Democrats are furious, they're incensed, they're outraged over these firings. But Republicans are outraged by dead babies and child porn. You ever think that maybe you might not have been as good at your job as you thought you were? Do you think that maybe something should change? My colleagues on the left are continuously saying, and I believe you said, we need to empower the government agencies. Well, what we are here to do is empower the parents, because when you empower parents, you give children a chance, and we need to try something different than what has failed over the past 7 years. Mr. Chairman, I yield.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I now recognize the gentleman from Michigan, home of a large part of our manufacturing base for automobiles, Mr. James, for 6 minutes.
Nice. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Chairman Guthrie and Griffith, I want to thank you and your staff for your professionalism, especially on moving this important measure forward. I rise to speak in support of H.J. Res. 87, my resolution of disapproval to overturn the Biden administration's California Advanced Clean Trucks rule. I, Mr. Chairman, am kind of disappointed, but not surprised, at my colleagues' lack of understanding for exactly what we're trying to do here. But I would expect bad faith negotiations here and elsewhere. But let me just highlight a couple of points that we've heard over the recent few minutes. Lowering prescription drug costs. I wonder what my colleagues think about our truck drivers and how their life-saving drugs get to their constituents. I wonder if they just appear out of thin air, or maybe the trucks that carry these things will actually just get there on unicorn tears and hopes and dreams. That doesn't happen. We actually need trucks to get our life-saving drug life-saving drug medications to the pharmacies at lower cost. And if you increase the number of trucks because you increased the number of trucks that you require because you've increased the payload capacity, you are going to actually do more harm than good. Let's talk about infrastructure. Apparently, my colleagues think we're doing nothing to address infrastructure when literally their plan will contribute directly to crumbling infrastructure due to the heavy weight of these trucks, which could also crash through barriers, which would endanger lives, which would also make sure that, I don't know, the number of 45,000 fatalities in this country would increase. I wonder how many American lives they would sacrifice on the altar of their Green New Deal initiatives. Also, literally, how do we pay for these roads, Mr. Speaker? We pay for these roads with gas taxes. And the gas taxes that these trucks would not be paying would take directly from the funds that we need to build our roads all across the country. In addition to air pollution, I mean, you know, Republicans care about clean air. We care about clean water. We also care about common sense. Maybe in California they can plug their trucks into a tree, but in the rest of the country, we are relying on an energy grid that is still at least half reliant on an all of the above approach, where we have economical, reliable energy, and you're still including things like natural gas and coal. These are the types of things that happen in the real world, and common sense applies in other areas outside of California, like in Michigan.
We're not afraid of the future, but we demand to be a part of it. America called on us during 2 world wars and a global pandemic, and my legislation will ensure that Michigan stands ready to answer the call once again. My family is no stranger to how important the trucking industry is. My father started a trucking business with 1 truck, 1 trailer, and no excuses. And then a generation later, I started a trucking company during the COVID pandemic. He grew up in the Jim Crow South and moved to Michigan in search of opportunity in the American dream, fought tooth and nail harmful regulations and misguided rules that would have prevented his company from ever getting off the ground. Now, more than 50 years later, his son stands before the United States House of Representatives to continue the fight against harmful regulations and misguided rules that put thousands upon thousands of livelihoods at risk. This Biden rule is not just bad policy, Mr. Speaker. It's a scam of a decade, putting California's failed EV policies in charge of the entire trucking industry in Michigan and the United States. Mr. Speaker, does anyone in this chamber actually believe that this is the United States of California? Perhaps Californians, but in Michigan, we do not want to be dictated by Sacramento, and there are about 49 other states that would agree. Gavin Newsom may be content with being the #1 state for declining population, losing nearly 1.2 million Californians from 2020 to 2023. But, Mr. Speaker, I assure you, I am not. This Biden-era waiver allows California to ram its comply or die zero-emission truck rule down the throat of American trucking industry, essentially gutting the trucking industry all across Michigan and across the country. It's a Green New Deal mandate that will crush our trucking industry and drive costs up on everything and increase deaths on our highways. Those are facts, those are facts, those are facts. This policy, if left unchecked, would mandate truck makers only, no exceptions, no choice, only sell expensive, less reliable, zero-emissions trucks. This is going to increase the number of trucks required, which is going to increase the cost of everything from gas to groceries. The death of the American trucking industry is not just an unintended consequence of this radical California policy. Mr. Speaker, it's the goal. They intend to set unworkable emission standards that will cripple our supply chains and make it impossible for tens of thousands of trucking companies to do business because they're unwieldy and inconvenient. This policy is unsustainable, unrealistic, and a job killer, and most importantly, is a life ender. Telling the Michigan trucking industry and all other industries that they are willing to move forward with this policy is unacceptable. Today, the House of Representatives will send a resounding no to the radical left and a resounding yes to the middle class, to our job creators, to our employers, to our truckers who keep America running. I urge my colleagues to do simple math, use common sense, and put this Biden-era California waiver to bed once and for all. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back. I hate war. I've seen what Iranian proxies have done to Americans in Iraq and innocent civilians. I hate war. But if you are not willing to fight for a Jew's right to exist, or Americans' right to live, or a country that says death to Israel and death to America, then what are we even doing? President Trump is the first president in my lifetime who's actually willing to use peace through strength, who's actually willing to put his money where his mouth is, to actually support nuclear non-proliferation and making sure that a nuclear Iran is never a thing. I applaud President Trump and his strength and his fortitude. And as he said, may God bless the Middle East, may God bless Israel, may God bless America.
For 5 minutes of questioning.
Mr. Secretary, welcome. Thank you for your time and your service. I am grateful for you being here. We've gotten to have some real good conversations here today because when it comes to the health of this country, as has been said many times before, we do not have a health care system. We have a sick care system. I'm just going to jump directly to my questions here. In your time and your research, do you have any objectives or any ideas on how to reverse the perverse incentives and some of the abuses that are happening with big companies and big government that are hurting people right now?
I mean, at every level of the system, there are, as you say, it's just a bundle of perverse incentives that encourage people that basically put every actor in the system, pharmaceutical companies, providers, hospitals, and insurance companies, in a advantageous position if they increase the number of sick Americans and the level of our illness. And the way that we need to change that broadly is to realign the incentives so that people are getting paid to actually make people better. So we want outcome-based medical care. We want value-based medical care. We're working through the Center for Medical Intervention for CMI at CNN to explore a number of pilot projects that will do just that. And then we want to roll them out across the system. But we're looking for every opportunity, and I had meetings all this week, including with all the big insurance companies that will do exactly that. They want to do it too. They understand this is not what anybody wants. It's
And
not
we've
good
spoken
for
with insurance companies too, and that's a big issue. But another big issue in the United States is we are still treating all calories equal, and they should not be. Ultra-processed junk food doesn't stack up to the calorie from an apple or fresh Michigan produce. We all know that we need to step up and address the fact that ultra-processed foods drive obesity, heart disease, and diabetes. But in Congress, we're still tiptoeing around the fact that less than 10% of Americans even follow current guidelines. Current food system is poisoning poor people, and it's wrong. During this drives up costs in our healthcare system or sick care system, and it drives up our national debt. It's a national security issue. Are there any plans that you can share here today to address the food deserts in urban areas and rural areas across states like Michigan? You mentioned changing some incentives. Well, the leading areas before people get sick in the first place is a great place to do it.
Yes, Congressman, the first thing that we need to do is to recalibrate the dietary guidelines, and those are due in December. We got a 453-page document from the Biden administration that was just the product of the same kind of industry control that put Fruit Loops at the top of the food pyramid. And we're now going to give Americans a 4 or 5-page document that tells them what they should be looking for, particularly in their locality. And when we do that, it's going to drive good food. It's going to reduce the amount of processed food in our school lunch programs, in our military, in our hospitals, and other institutions. And it's going to drive good food. That's going to create markets for good food all over the country. And that's one of the ways we penetrate the food deserts.
Very good.
There's also
Secretary-
programs under Medicaid to make sure that people in food deserts, on Indian reservations, in urban areas, et cetera, can get good food.
Very good. We absolutely have to take care of the poorest of the poor. We need to make sure that folks who deserve it can have support from us. Yesterday,
By the way, we're going to have the dietary guidelines out at least by August, so we're going to be months early, and I'm working with Brooke Rollins on that. And they're going to be very good.
The government being early on something that's great. Secretary Kennedy, yesterday, you and CMS Administrator Oz secured an industry pledge to fix our broken prior authorization system. I hear stories from places like Flint, Michigan, where Dr. Bobby Mukamala sought prior authorization for full cancer screening after his patient's stage 1 tonsil cancer diagnosis so that he could determine the best treatment outcomes. When the patient finally received the PET scan 3 weeks later, the cancer had progressed to stage 2. These prior authorization reforms are critically necessary. What are you talking to industry folks about to hold them accountable for their pledges?
The largest companies in the industry, and I brought them all together, have now made the pledge to us yesterday that they're going to get rid of 80% of the prior authorizations. And they're also going to, make their systems interoperable. So it's much easier for a doctor to very quickly, before you leave the office, you should have that prior authorization.
The gentleman's time has expired.